Welcome to the Divine Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Aroche, and together we are walking the path of discovering your true self and the alignment with your soul. Through these conversations, you will experience a deeper level of connection with yourself and the universe, and most importantly, you will trust in your spiritual journey ahead. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Divine Connection Podcast. Today's conversation is all about the clairs, or in other words, our abilities to connect with energy, connect with spirit. It is our intuitive senses and how we receive information. And this topic, this conversation is inspired by Bob's question that came in. And so Bob says, one of my main senses is clairsentience, and my other senses seem to be gradually coming back in stronger as well. I work with and have a significant entourage of angelic guides, gods, goddesses, deities, magical creatures around me all of the time, not to mention sensing spirits and not so nice beings. It's a lot of energy to feel simultaneously and process. Some beings come in stronger than others, but sometimes it's like being in a crowded room and I don't know who's who. My question is two parts. So, part one, how do you yourself differentiate the different beings who come around? And part two, when you hear them, are you hearing them in their own voices or are you hearing them through you in your own voice? Thank you, Bob, first of all, for submitting this question. I love it so much. And I'm so excited to dive deeper into this conversation. And I feel, first of all, I just want to say, I feel like for so many people, especially empaths that are out there, and just in general, people who are more sensitive and who are sensitive to energy, I feel like a lot of people can relate to your experience of just being surrounded by all these different energies, feeling like, I love how you described it as feeling like you are in a crowded room and you don't know who's who. I feel like that's such a common experience for so many people. So thank you for bringing that forward and for sharing that. And, I think first of all, for people listening in, this is your sign that you're not alone in your experience and you're not alone in feeling like it's overwhelming sometimes to understand who's who, what's the energy, who is the energy. I feel like there's beings around me, but I don't know who it is. And so I really love to dive into this topic and conversation. And so to answer Bob's question, or the first question, for me personally, the way that I differentiate the different beings who come around, the first initial input, I will say, in terms of me being aware of that is through my vision. So I see it in my mind's eye. So I don't see beings like as if they're literally in the room with me. I see it in my mind's eye. So I know that they're there based off of what I perceive in my mind's eye. And very often, depending on obviously, the energy that we're talking about, but especially when it comes to the angels, let's say, for example, I see them as the light that they are. So I see them in the light, and oftentimes I see them in the color. So if Archangel Samuel is coming forward, I see him in an orange hue. So I see the orange energy coming through. Or Archangel Raphael, I immediately feel the green coming through with Archangel Raphael. So that's the first initial input that comes into my awareness. That's just like, oh, I see that and I feel that. And then, for other beings, let's just take Jesus as an example. I feel more of his presence. I see more of his characteristics and things like that. Not so much just like a ball of light, like I see the angels. With Jesus, it's different. With goddesses, it's a little bit different, etc. And so it just simply depends on what energy we're talking about. But the consistent thing through and through for me is that through my vision, through my mind's eye, is the first initial way that I perceive. And then right after that, it's my sense of feeling. Like I can feel the energy. I can feel the frequency that they hold. And so based on that frequency, then that is also, I pick up and I have a sense of, I know who they are. And so that has often served me and helped me when connecting with new beings or new angelic guides. So when I first met Angel Celeste, she came through, and the way that this happened is that essentially I felt like there was this energy, this presence around me, this angelic being that was around me, and I wasn't exactly sure, I wasn't fully tuning in, I just felt that presence, I could see it, and I thought maybe it was an archangel. But then when I sat down to actually connect with this angelic being, I knew just based on the feeling and the frequency that it wasn't an archangel. And so that's where then my journey took me into, oh, who are you? Like, what are you here to do? And that's how the presence of Angel Celeste came through. And then I started talking about it, and a lot of people also then really resonated with it and said, oh wow, like she's come through for me as well. So that's just an example of how that has happened, with when I'm meeting different angelic beings or different guides, or when I am working with a client one on one. Sometimes the archangels are the ones that are coming through for them, but then sometimes it's other energies that are coming through to support them. And so that is how I then differentiate, because I'll see it in my mind's eye, but then my sense, my feeling of the frequency and the essence that they hold is almost like a filter to help me to understand on a deeper level. Oh, that is a personal angelic guide. Or no, that's an ascended master. No, that is a goddess. No, that is an archangel. And so from there, it kind of helps to filter that, and it's through my sense and through my knowing that that comes through. And the way that that has developed for me is truly through practice over time. I've been doing this for over 7 years now, so I've had a lot of practice, but also it's the consistency and trusting in how, and what comes through for me, and trusting in that knowledge, trusting in that sense, trusting in that feeling, and going with it. And then as I have leaned into it, because I do remember at the beginning, I doubted myself all the time. I said, how do I know that that's true? How do I know if that's real? How do I know if I'm right? And you don't know until you lean into it, and until you practice it, until you're consistent with it. And I do believe that my work in terms of, from the beginning, putting myself out there and being open and willing to channel for other people and to bring them guidance and messages has very much supported me in getting very skilled at this, and in really building a lot of trust and confidence in myself, in my ability to do so. So that's one thing that I'll say for anyone who's listening and who desires to develop their abilities. And, obviously this is very dependent on your path and what you feel called towards. But if you know that eventually you're being called towards being an energy healer or a channel, or working with spirit in some way in this greater capacity to support other people, I would highly suggest and recommend that you practice with other people, and you practice in this way where you're given the opportunity not to just, receive guidance for yourself, but to bring guidance to other people, and to tune in to the energies that want to come through for other people, to support them, to practice that and to lean into that, because that's the way that you're going to continue to develop that ability to sense and to feel and to know what is the truth and what is the frequency that comes in. And so it's kind of this combination of, first my vision, my mind's eye, what I see, directly followed by the feeling and the sense, and then that tied in with my knowing, and that intuitive knowing of, this is what it is, this is the energy, this is the frequency, and that's just what it is. And then going from there. And so that's how I know. And then as a part of that, sometimes if I don't know, if I'm like, I've never met this energy before, or I'm not really familiar, I will lean into Archangel Gabriel or Archangel Michael as kind of like my guide or my support, and to be like, okay, so help me to understand more about this specific presence or this specific energy. So I will ask questions. And that's one of the things that I always teach my students who mentor with me in terms of their healing gifts and their abilities, is I always say, ask the questions. ask the questions and specifically ask, utilize the support from the archangels or any other divine beings that you know and that you trust and that you have a relationship with. Ask them to support you and ask them to help you kind of bridge the gap or help you to understand information that maybe you're not fully understanding in the moment. And so asking questions will be your best friend and getting comfortable with asking questions. And then that's the other part of this is you will get good at asking questions, and that's going to support you as well. So that's what I have to say about that aspect. And so then to go into part 2 of your question, when I hear their energy, their guidance, what they're saying, it's their voice. I hear it in their voice. I don't hear it in mine. I hear it in their voice. And also I'll just add, it's an interesting combination because I hear it in their voice, but it still feels like it's internal, if that makes sense. I don't feel like it's outside of me. I feel like through my heart or through my channel within me, that's where I feel it coming in, or coming out of, I should say. And also it's not my voice. So that's my personal experience with that, with how I receive that information. And the other fun fact that I'll share is that I often feel, for me personally, and this is what I also teach to my students, is that when you're tuning in to receive, you'll often feel that it's coming from a certain part or a certain side. So for me personally, I feel like it comes from my right side and slightly to the back. And I feel the presence of angels there. I feel like the presence and the energy comes through from that space, and then it kind of moves through me, and then I express it or I direct it outwards and I share what I see, share what's coming forward. But that's the experience. And then when I am also, I'll just share as well the way that I receive messages specifically and receive guidance, aside from my mind's eye being the way that I perceive the energy coming forward. My vision in my mind's eye is also how the first point of contact of when guidance comes in. So oftentimes they will relate information to me through my vision. I'll start to see something like a symbol, or I'll see, like, let's say if I'm in a one-on-one session with a client, I'll see something about them or their energy or their presence or what they're doing that will be a clue to the guidance. And then that's mixed in with the feeling, that's mixed in with intuitive knowing, then that's mixed in with what I hear. So it's like a big jumble. It's really interesting for me to, when I try to kind of like dismantle it and break it down, it feels like it's a lot, or it feels like there's all these different things that are going on at the same time. But then when it's actually happening, it's just simultaneously all happening together. And I think the best way for someone to understand is for them to experience that, or to be in that space where they're receiving from me and they see all this information coming through. So that's how it all comes together for me. And then the other thing that I'll just share as a bonus here, because I feel like this is important to just share, is that for anyone who is desiring to develop their clairs and develop their abilities and their ability to connect and sense energy and receive messages and all the things, is I always say start with the ability that is strongest for you. And the way that you'll know is in your meditations, or when you are asking for guidance. How does information come to you? Or what sense, what ability is most obvious to you? Is it your vision? Is it your feeling, like your sense, your knowing? And kind of going from there and utilizing that as your anchor point, because when we focus on the one that is the strongest already, then that naturally opens up the other ones, because now we are, when we focus on the one that's strongest, it helps to open up our channel to receive information in that way. And when our channel is open and when we're receiving information, that is almost like, I see it as, it clears the way for the other senses to come online as well and to get stronger and to develop. So that is always my recommendation when it comes to developing your abilities and developing your clairs, is you do focus on the strongest one, and through that process, do the practices and things that will help develop the other ones. But when you're channeling or when you're specifically asking for guidance, focus on your strongest ability and receiving it that way. And then you'll naturally see how the other ones just start to appear. And it's really fun and really exciting. And so the last thing that I'll share, if you are interested, for anyone who's listening and you want to learn more, you want to develop your ability, develop the clairs, develop your sense of receiving messages and guidance, I have a clairs workshop. It's called Developing Your Clairs. That is a self-study course that you can now register for. And it's really amazing because I walk you through the 4 different main ones and specifically give you, steps and guidance and practices of how to open up each one, how to do the practices to develop them, to deepen your trust in them, and all of the things. And it's this method that I teach inside of the Claire's workshop is the same method that I've been teaching for several years now. And this is the one that I teach to my students who go through the Angelic Healer program. It is a tried and true method to developing your clairs and to supporting you in your skills and in your abilities to connect with energy. And it's going to support you both with understanding which energies, which divine beings are around you, and getting clear and having a deeper relationship with them. I walk you through how to do that inside of the workshop. And of course, me being me, I am specifically using the archangels as the example and as the anchor point to support you. But of course, you can apply this to your spirit guides. You can apply this to ascended masters, any divine beings that you work with. But, archangels are going to be the example that I use inside of the workshop. And so you're going to learn how to develop in the ability to tune in and know who is around you and deepen that relationship with the different beings specifically. And in addition to that, it's going to support you with actually receiving messages, actually receiving guidance, to be able to utilize your abilities to receive messages in that way. So I'm really excited for this workshop. It is self-study, so you can take your time with it. You can go through it in your own way, do the practices, all of the things. And like I said, it's a tried and true method. I've been doing this for years. And this is the most effective way to develop your clairs. So that is available for you. It's called Developing Your Clairs. You can find the link for it in more details in the show notes below this episode. Or if you go to my website, you can see it there as well. And all the details are there and you can sign up and get immediate access. So I love it. I'm so excited. I cannot wait for you to dive into this workshop if it is calling out to you. So otherwise, aside from that, I want to say once again, thank you, Bob, for submitting your question. And for those of you who want to ask a question, want to receive guidance, you can always do so. You just simply have to go to ChristinaRoche.com/ask-Christina and submit your question. And at some point it will come up on the podcast, and I cannot wait to support you further. So that is it for today. Thank you again for joining me, for listening in. As always, I am sending you so much love and angel blessings, and I will see you very soon. Bye. Thank you once again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And if you want to learn more about the Divine Connection podcast, you can go to ChristinaAroche.com/podcast and learn about how you can be featured on the show.